Standard reading methods often attempt to force the sacred text into a linear timeline of historical events. Imposing this human-authored framework onto the scripture creates narrative anomalies. When we try to read the Qur'an as a history book, we are met with chronological inconsistencies and repetitive stories that appear out of sequence. The text itself identifies this approach as a methodology to be avoided, specifically in verses 1590 and 91. These verses describe a strict prohibition against parting or fragmenting the text into isolated events. This manuscript page illustrates the result of following that law, an unbroken, continuous flow of data that maintains topological unity across every page. Treating the text as a chronological history creates false dependencies. To resolve the anomalies, we must compute the text as a simultaneous, holographic whole. The text operates as a topological state machine governed by a specific, unified protocol. A topological state machine is a system where the relationship between components and their connectivity determines the outcome, rather than a fixed narrative sequence. Verse 1587 defines the core logic gate for this operating system, the 7 oft-repeated, or al-sabʿ al-mathānī. This 7 is a precise information theoretic necessity required to organize a high-entropy system. This geometry describes a unified repeating light. The text functions as a closed Möbius loop, a topological structure with one side and one boundary, allowing continuous movement without intersection. Its endpoint directly informs its beginning. Understanding this requires deriving its architecture from the 237 protocol. Shifting from a historical timeline to this topological map allows us to access the text's underlying structural physics. Any information system requires distinction or bifurcation to exist. Without two opposing states, there is no potential for data to be recorded or processed. We define these as two orthogonal fields. Light acts as the deterministic constraint, the absolute truth, while sound represents thermodynamic flow and human experience. Orthogonal fields are perpendicular systems that can coexist in the same space without interfering, provided they remain separated. Direct contact between these fields cause annihilation. They are fundamentally incompatible. This creates a baseline state of observational tension, similar to what we see in the Hubble tension. The Hubble tension is a major discrepancy in physics, where two different methods of measuring the universe's expansion yield two different, incompatible results. This baseline duality requires a strict intermediate mechanism to allow interaction without the destruction of the system. To prevent annihilation, we introduce a mandatory third operator, the buffer. The buffer functions through a triadic input-process-output cycle. It mediates between the two incompatible fields, allowing them to exchange information. By acting as a bridge between absolute truth and chaotic flow, the buffer provides the exact mechanism for decoherence. Decoherence is the process where a quantum system interacts with its environment, forcing a wide range of probabilities to collapse into a single, definite state. This triadic processor, the 3, mirrors the text's recurring descriptions of creation as pairs that are stabilized by a central divine command. Within this buffer zone, measurement and actualized choice become possible for the first time. The triadic gate transforms static potential and raw flow into measurable action. If we run a binary two-state field through this 3-gate triadic processor, we can calculate the resulting state space. Mathematically, 2 to the power of 3 equals exactly 8 possible configurations. However, one of these states, the 000 configuration, represents total noise or absolute non-existence. The system must remove this null state to maintain its internal coherence. This leaves exactly 7 active, maximally distinguishable states. These states form a stable, circular ring of information. Verse 1587 refers to this mathematical maximum as the al-sabʿ al-mathānī. In a dynamical system, these 7 states function as stable attractor basins. An attractor basin is a region of state space where all possible trajectories eventually settle into a single predictable outcome. The cosmic manifestation of these 7 attractor basins appears throughout the text as the 7 heavens. Because these 7 states encompass the entire active state space of the triadic gate, the system achieves topological closure. This completeness seals the system against the leak of information into entropic decay. We can now visualize the complete dual caustic universe model. The 2-3-7 architecture forms a central horizontal buffer framed by dual arcs, where 7 nodes process information in sequence. The scriptural mandates of verses 1587 and 91 lock into this geometry with perfect precision. This operating system is scale invariant. It governs every exchange of information from quantum interactions to the cellular processes of biology. At the macroscopic scale, we can identify the location of the primary buffer in our system. Earth functions as the central balance point, where the cosmic fields of light and sound are synthesized into the form we observe. The universe functions as a self-returning standing wave, governed by this 2-3-7 code. The text provides the source code for this standing wave. Engaging with the text involves an active process of data entanglement with the light field. Data entanglement is a state where two systems become so connected that the properties of one are intrinsically linked to the other, regardless of distance. This crowd provides a physical representation of this algorithmic traversal. To complete the 2-3-7 loop, a human processor is required to operate the triadic buffer. Through this interaction, the reader begins to reorder chaotic experience into coherent truth. Adopting the topological view activates the text's primary function as a mathematical operating system. This operational engagement allows the reader to function as a purified node, collapsing the universal waveform into a singular truth.